The presentation comes basically from work we've done in assessing projects that are in trouble. So unfortunately, the kind of work that consultants usually get is work that deals with things that aren't going well. We have a hard time finding or being hired by or being used in projects that are doing just fine. Of course, you don't need anybody when things are going swimmingly. So this comes from things that we've seen from reviewing a number of projects that have been some sort of problem. And for the vast majority of these assessments that we've done, it's been schedule that's been the primary concern. That's been the big red flag. And not just a little schedule slip. Usually we're involved in trying to do assessments in projects that have made multiple slips, and people are kind of at their wits' end. They're just a little, the credibility's gone from the schedule. The project office or the project management is, they're upset. And so we're coming in with this to try to provide information. Now we use this model that I'm going to show you to try to organize information and understand where problems are occurring and how they're impacting schedule. It's more of a risk-type assessment. It's not, meant to do any, direct management to do this or that kind of thing. It's just a look at what's going on. Now, projects have a lot of complicated dynamics that, in many things, can negatively impact the schedule. The kinds of projects we're talking about here are big projects. These are projects that employ, 100 people. The 5-person project, the 10, 20-person project, you can pretty much keep the pulse of the project every day by meeting or touch points or weekly meetings. But when you have a very large project with lots of different participants, it's just too hard for one person to control it all. And even a set of managers has a hard time keeping everything known between all the management staff and able to anticipate problems. So these assessments typically done, and this model is used typically on large projects. So because of all these kinds of things that go on large projects, schedule does tend to slip. And the point of this presentation is to eliminate these dynamics. And only through awareness and visibility can we hope to foresee the problems early enough while they're still small, that corrective actions can be taken before schedules impacted. And by that, I am just saying that if you start early you can use this model both early in the project just as a health check kind of monitoring, or you can use it later when things are not going well and you're trying to find out why are things continuing to slip. So I'm going to go to the next slide here, slide 7. This is slide 8. The objectives of the webinar are to discuss the common approaches to tracking progress projects. So we'll do just a little background review. Discuss actions to take when the progress starts slipping. Describe an approach to finding the root causes of slippage. That's where this model I'm going to discuss will come into play. Describe characteristics of an effective monitoring program to proactively prevent future occurrences of slippage. This is where measurement, which is what we do, this is where measurement comes in, where you can employ measurement effectively. So this approach to finding root cause of slippage actually guides us in where to put measurement, try to understand how things are changing in the project, and then finally provide a number of real-world examples. So I'll give you a few slides. We're going to talk a little bit about leading indicators that will give you perhaps give you some lead time that schedule will be slipping in the future based on some current changes that are going on in the project. All right, I'm going to go to the next slide here, 9. All right, examples of progress tracking measures. So these are things that we always see on big projects, or at least we've seen in our experience. But, typically you have claims of progress, but usually those claims are subjective and are not dependable means of tracking progress. There's usually a lot of pressure to finish on time, especially if your task is on the critical path of getting the project done. And people often feel that they're almost done, but sometimes, maybe often is the case, that sometimes the hardest part is often left to last. And that last 10% can be very difficult to close. So you have subjective claims of progress that hurts in getting a picture of what's happening. Some objective measures of progress, if you can lean on those if they're available, which would present better indicators of what's happening, are schedule reviews that are successfully completed. Of course, the key word there is successfully. What does that mean? Task start and end dates, especially for tasks that are, let's say, no longer than 2 weeks in duration. Lots and lots of tasks, basically. Critical path performance analysis, where there are tools that can hold scheduling information and then do analysis on what the critical path is, what tasks have to be done along in a certain sequence that actually determine the length of time that will take to finish a major task or the project. Milestones achieved, definitions of what a milestone is, and when the word achieved, it really means, is it almost done? Is it done when we had the review? Is it done when something shows up? Is it done when that artifact is finally reviewed and approved? Those kinds of issues. Units designed, units coded, units integrated. Source lines of code written is another progress measure. The test cases attempted and passed. Number of requirements tested successfully. Problem reports backlog. That's a way that, kind of a hidden way that progress can be slipping. You may be thinking that you're advancing, but if your backlog of problem reports is increasing, especially for very serious problem reports, then you actually aren't progressing as fast as you think. Change requests open and completed, action items closed, open and closed, and delivery of artifacts. All right, I'll go to the next slide here. Progress tracking tools. So there's lots of things out there being used. In the government, the earned value management system tools are very popular. There's 3 indicators on that tool. There's a thing that shows plan value, which is basically the plan of the project to complete the work. Then there's the earned value, which actually shows how much work has been done and is compared to the plan. And then there's the cost component of a project, which is compared to the earned value. How much do things actually cost along the way? There's work breakdown structure tools, which feed into the earned value tools. They can show Gantt charts with milestones. They can do the critical path analysis that I mentioned earlier. There's workflow tools that will guide basically progress through a number of steps in a process. This, of course, depends upon a process being existing in the first place, and then people following it in the second place. But then, as documents are approved or moved along, or certain kinds of things are happening, and there's certain approval points along the way that you can then measure the progress of those steps. Then there are spreadsheet tools that usually people use to do working in progress, and even in very big organizations, down at the working level, usually spreadsheets are used to track the numbers, and then those numbers are used to usually put input into a larger management tracking tool like Earned Value Management System. So typically what we see is tools show what is not getting done, but they don't often show the causes. If you know where to look in some tools, for instance, Earned Value Management tool, if you were to, or WBS tools, if you were to know what to go look for, you could probably find what the causes were. But tools usually report what's happening, the result at that moment, or for earned value, it's sometimes the result of what's happened in the past. And they don't give you the kind of the lead time you need to really anticipate problems and fix them before they become before they impact schedule. All right, next slide. So when progress starts slipping, what should we do? And the slippage is basically an unfortunate reality of many complex software projects. I mean, it just happens a lot. There's a way to manage that in smaller projects, in that you can shift functionality around, or you can increase people to a point to get more work done, or you work a little overtime or that kind of thing. But you can't do that overtime working for long periods of time. That tends to burn people out. And for very large projects, the slippage here can cause a ripple effect across the project. There's repeated slippages cause problems and embarrassment. People don't like to report bad progress, and the problems that it can cause is that there can be dependencies and that kind of thing that go on, that if your task is late, you're going to push other tasks out. They're going to be late as well. In this presentation, what we're going to discuss is an approach to finding the root causes of schedule slippage, and then using that idea to prevent future surprises using a 4-step process. So naturally, the first step in the process would be to recheck the plan. Is it credible? You go back and you look at how the schedule was created. Was it a